Six Blind Elephants, page 102. However, the same logical structure can be used to install presuppositions that the listener does not already have. So, this kind of communication is very hypnotic. For instance, in the following short piece from a Virginia satire, Meditation, there are six logical levels of presupposition. Although the listener, as we come fully in touch with our capacity, inborn in all of us, to choose out of all we have at this moment, that which fits us well, we notice that there are things we haven't used. As we come fully in touch with our capacity, inborn in all of us, to choose out of all we have at this moment, that which fits us well, we notice that there are things we haven't used. Although the listener may not already agree with all these presuppositions, they are likely to be useful because they describe an expansion of choice that fit the person rather than someone else. However, if a therapist were to use the same structure to say, I want you to get fully in touch with the latent and uncontrollable destructive forces seething within you, those presuppositions would seldom be accurate or useful. Try a quick experiment. Think of a problem that you have and notice how you represent it in your mind. Now, imagine that you say the following sentence to yourself, which is part of a current self-help program. Could I allow myself to remember how I used to believe I had this problem, and notice how your image changes? That question has five logical levels of presupposition: problem, belief, past events, remembering, and allowing. That can certainly change the listener's experience of a problem, putting it into the category of remembered past beliefs, whether they allow it or not. If the problem is purely imaginary, that could be useful. However, if they really do have a problem, that will only recategorize it as no longer a problem, not solve the problem. If the problem is cancer, thinking that it is no longer a problem could be quite dangerous. Many people and other people around them already suffer from attitudes and behaviors that they do not think of as problems. Nearly every communication has at least two or three logical levels or of experience, and some have many more. To gain skill in noticing these different levels, take any sentence and first determine the categories in it. Then pair any two of these categories and decide whether one of them is described as a member of the other. Start with short sentences and then work up to longer ones to gradually increase your ability to do this quickly and easily. Another source of complexity is that two different categories often overlap, so that some experiences are members of both categories. For instance, the category houses and apartments might seem to be totally separate, but townhomes and condominiums could be thought of as a belonging to both those categories, with specifically additional criteria. We, if we specify additional criteria, we can divide them into additional separate categories included in the more general category homes, along with tents, huts, yurts, etc. Adding criteria divides experience into more specific categories, while deleting criteria results in fewer, more general categories. The only basis for assigning logical levels is by discovering the kind of categorical inclusion that a particular person uses in order to organize their experience. Although there is an example, although there is an extreme example, it is a pretty accurate description of much more of our internal experience than most people realize. Our experience is often far removed from the things and events that we are describing and thinking we are experiencing directly. There are only two significant differences between the hallucinations of schizophrenics and the abstract theories of physicists. One is that the physicists' theories are much more complex and interesting. A, a cosmologist's theory of everything is incredibly strange and detailed, with lots of esoteric mathematics, black holes, and toothless quarks. In contrast, a schizophrenic's hallucination is often just a voice repeatedly criticizing and judging him for some mundane mistake. The other difference is that physicists are eager to test their abstractions and predictions, and even more eager to revise them in the face of evidence showing that the old ones are inadequate. When we use our ability to create abstract categories and frequently return to sensory-based experience where we can test them for accuracy, we are doing what all scientists do. When we use our ability to create abstract categories and frequently return to sensory-based experience where where we can test them for accuracy, we are doing what all scientists do. But most of us don't test our categories and abstractions nearly often enough, and we can easily get lost in them, only experiencing the ghost of the shadows of silhouettes of the statues of two puppets. The progressive loss of specific information as we create a chain of abstractions from abstractions is a crucial foundation for the success of rational logical thought. One more time. The progressive loss of specific information as we create a chain of abstractions from abstractions is crucial foundation for the success of rational logical thought. Progressive loss of specific information is a crucial foundation for the success of rational logical thought. But sometimes it is also the source of its catastrophic failures, and this can even happen in the context of specific and detailed science. For instance, the Mars climate orbiter crashed because of lack of specificity of a single abstract number. The group of engineers that provided the number used the English system, feet and pounds, while the engineers who received the number assumed that it was in the metric system, meters and kilograms. Whenever we use an abstract representation, we may lose so many details that we apply understanding where they are not appropriate, causing us disappointment and confusion. Our tendency to simplify our experience by using criteria, categories, is even more obvious when we remember something. Recently, I recalled a particular soup that I had enjoyed. I recalled how much I liked it, category, but couldn't recall how it actually tasted, sensory based. Logical levels. Summary of basic principles. From the foregoing discussion, we can summarize several important and interesting principles of logical levels. Sensory-based experience. First, sensory-based experience. A sensory-based experience, before it is grouped and categorized, is simply a scope which I have arbitrarily designated as logical level 0. Sensory-based experience. A sensory-based experience, before it is grouped and categorized, is simply a scope which I have arbitrarily designated as logical level 0. Second, assigning logical levels. The term logical level only applies to a category of experience. A category whose members are sensory-based experiences is at logical level 1. A category whose members are logical level 1 categories is at logical level 2. A category whose members are logical level 2 categories is at level 3, etc. Now one more time. Assigning logical levels. The term logical level only applies to a category of experience. A category whose members are sensory-based experiences is at logical level 1. A category whose members are logical level 1 categories is at logical level 2. And so on and so forth. 3. Categorical inclusion. In order to say that two categories are at different logical levels, we have to show that the members of one category are included in the other. Categorical inclusion. 4. Categorical inclusion is different from scope inclusion. In categorical inclusion, a sensory-based experience is included in a category of similar experiences, or the members of one category of experience are included in another more general category. In scope inclusion, described in Chapter 1, a scope of sensory-based experience is included in a larger scope of sensory-based experience, which may not be similar at all to the smaller scope. One more time. Categorical inclusion is different from scope inclusion. In categorical inclusion, a sensory-based experience is included in a category of similar experiences, or the members of one category of experience are included in another, more general category. In scope inclusion, described in Chapter 1, a scope of sensory-based experience is included in a larger scope of sensory-based experience, which may not be similar to all the smaller scope. 5. Logical levels are relative. The logical level we assign to a category is not a fixed thing that belongs to a category, but is relative, depending on how a particular person categorizes. The category keys would be at level 1 for someone who doesn't subdivide kisses into more specific categories, while for someone who does subdivide kisses into more specific categories, it would be at level 2, etc. Level 6. Levels of abstraction. The representation of a basic level category is a prototype example, which is always more abstract than the full range of examples in the category. More general categories become successively more abstract because they use prototypes of more specific categories as examples. The prototype of more general category is an abstraction of abstractions. Each step of abstraction